Well, welcome to Christ and Culture. This is Pastor Jeff Short, your Bible teacher and cultural commentator. And today I'm going to talk about my old seminary where I got my Master's of Divinity School way back in the day, Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, and some big changes that are happening at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. They're in Deerfield, Illinois. And let me back up and talk about how I came to be a graduate of Trinity Seminary in Illinois. I became a Christian when I was 16, and I was planning on going into electronic engineering, and I began training for that. I took a couple years of electronic engineering training, but then I began to sense a calling of God to go into Christian ministry, teaching and preaching the Bible, and leading in the church, in Christianity. So I started looking around for a place to educate myself in the Bible and theology and so forth. And I happened to go to a conference where the late Francis Schaeffer was teaching in Livonia, Michigan. And I actually was able to talk to Francis Schaeffer for a couple minutes. And I said, I'm thinking about going into seminary as part of a calling to the ministry. And he said, be careful where you go because seminaries are vastly different and you don't want to lose your faith or have your faith rob you of conviction at a liberal seminary. I said, do you have any recommendations? And he recommended Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Deerfield, Illinois, because if you looked at the scholars there, these were men who were all authors and speakers and really widely respected Christian thinkers. And I said, great, that's where I really would like to go. Francis Schaeffer even recommended Trinity Seminary, and it was only about 5 or 6 hours from where I was born and raised in Michigan. So I decided to go to Trinity Seminary. And after a long process, I was able to go through Wheaton College and get an undergraduate degree, and then finally get into Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Deerfield, Illinois. And I had a great time there. I learned from some of the top scholars. I sat in a class. I had a class with Carl F.H. Henry, one of the big leaders in evangelicalism for decades and decades. I studied under men like Kenneth Conser and all kinds of scholars, Paul Feinberg, Stuart Hackett, all kinds of people like, you just go through the roster and you can see these big names in evangelicalism, authors, speakers, theologians, thinkers. And I was really pleased with my education. Now, I began to realize that maybe 3 or 4 years ago that Trinity College and Trinity Seminary were going through some kind of financial problems. And it really accelerated after COVID hit. And then I heard a couple years ago that Trinity College, the college right next door to the seminary, was actually going totally online. So that's a bad sign, but they had online classes and the faculty taught online. I said, okay, maybe that's what they'll do to survive the economic crunch that they were going through. And then the year later, they actually decided they were going to close all classes online and in person. So you have this nice big campus there and facility and faculty at the college, and all of a sudden, everything goes away. There is no Trinity College. It's totally gone. And I was shocked. I was like, wait, how can this be? How can leadership allow this to happen? And why wasn't there more of an understanding to people observing from the outside that, hey, this is critical. We're almost out of existence here. Why wasn't there a big hue and cry that we need help and big time help and now? But they didn't do that. It's just all of a sudden, we're closing down all of Trinity College. And so I said, well, They are focusing on the seminary. That's really the priority. I would have to say, if you look at that whole big campus, the seminary is definitely the most world-renowned, and they have the most respected scholars. And so if you're going to save anything, you have to save the seminary. So they said, we're going to focus and concentrate and put our priority on the seminary. Okay, great. So then all of a sudden, a couple weeks ago, no, it was last week, I received an email from the president of Trinity Evangelical Divinity School with a major announcement. And so let me play that. I think this was sent out to all the alumni at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. And here is what that president said in his email video. So let's roll the clip here.
For more than a century, Trinity Evangelical Divinity School has effectively equipped leaders for the church. From its founding in 1897 as a place to train pastors, missionaries, and leaders for what would become the Evangelical Free Church of America, to its growth on the North Shore of Chicago, TEDS became a hub of evangelical thought and effective training of leaders for the church. Combining academic excellence and practical ministry training, all rooted in the inerrant scriptures, the impact of TEDS in the lives of ministry leaders and the places where they serve can be seen across the United States and around the world. Meanwhile, in the Pacific Northwest, Trinity Western University was being built on a similar vision. In 1962, Trinity Junior College opened its doors in British Columbia, Canada, as an evangelical free church school, growing to the place where today it is the largest privately funded Christian university in Canada, with nearly 6,000 students. Both institutions share a common statement of faith rooted in the evangelical free church and are shaped by a commitment to the inerrant scriptures, solid evangelical theology, and God's gospel-centered mission, all with the goal of training and equipping godly leaders for the church who glorify God as they engage in His redemptive work in the world. At this time of both challenges and incredible opportunities in Christian higher education, I believe a school like TEDS will thrive best and accomplish our mission most effectively as part of a larger, theologically and missionally aligned evangelical Christian university. Today, a singular vision is being realized. TEDS is now taking steps to become a part of Trinity Western University, solidifying a shared future and expanding ministry impact as we seek to produce biblically faithful, theologically driven, and culturally aware Christian leaders.
Okay, so that is the announcement that I received from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, and I thought, okay, what they're doing is they're affiliating with a larger college and university, and they're going to be a part of that orbit. So, okay, that's okay, as long as they can maintain the seminary there in Deerfield and the faculty and keep enrolling students, training them to be pastors, then everything's okay. It's just a realignment of organization and everything like that. That's what I thought. But then I began to hear more and more about the situation, and I began to read, and this is not the case. They are actually closing down the Deerfield Seminary. They're actually closing down Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Deerfield. So here's a picture of the library, Rolfing Library, that I've been in many, many times, studying and borrowing books and so forth. And the headlines, which was somewhat deceptive in the first email that I got from the president here, it said, we're lining ourselves up with Trinity Western University. And I thought, okay, Trinity Western University, Langley, British Columbia, that's way on the west coast of the United States and up into Canada. So that's over 2,000 miles away. But as far as the affiliation goes, that shouldn't affect anything at the campus there in Deerfield, Illinois, right? No, wrong. They didn't. He didn't come right on and say it, but they're actually. Here's Christianity Today reporting on it. Trinity Evangelical Divinity School moving to Canada. So if you're moving to Canada, you're actually shutting down Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. So why do I say that? Because you have students from all over the country coming to the Midwest. It's right there in the middle of the country. You have people on the East Coast coming here. You have people on the West Coast coming to the Midwest into a suburb of Chicago. That's where Deerfield is. It's a very centrally located place. It's a great place. And you have faculty that live in and around the suburb of Chicago where this seminary is. And so I was under the impression at first that, okay, they're affiliating more closely and going to become a part of Trinity Western University and function under that umbrella. No, they're actually moving. So this is effectively closing down Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Illinois. The influential seminary, once called a love gift to the worldwide Church of Christ, has long struggled financially. So again, you have a situation where Trinity College, over across here, I don't know if they have a bigger picture, but I can point out over here, they have the college used to be across the street on one side, and then the Divinity School, the seminary, was on the other side. And I understood that they closed down the Trinity College, okay, and they were supposed to be focusing on the seminary to keep that going and shifting all the resources and priorities to that. But now it looks like they're shutting down the seminary and they're moving, and it's closing down here in the United States. It's not even going to be in the same country. So this is a lot worse than I had initially thought. Let's read the Christianity Today summary. It says a prominent but troubled evangelical seminary has agreed to be acquired by Canadian University and moved to British Columbia, the school's leaders announced today. Okay, so that statement alone does not mean they're actually moving. It just says they agreed to be acquired by that. You know, a lot of companies will buy up another company, but it doesn't mean they're moving the headquarters of the company they bought to some drastically distant, some other location. But that is the case here. The move comes after years of financial struggle and declining attendance at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, known as TEDS, an evangelical free church school whose alums have played an outsized role in shaping American evangelicalism. So just so many famous evangelicals have gone through TEDS, or Trinity Seminary. Trinity will continue to hold classes in Bannockburn, Illinois campus north of Chicago during the 2025-26 academic year, but will move to the campus of Trinity Western University in Langley, British Columbia in 2026. So basically, they're going to finish up this year, and it looks like they're going to finish up the next year, but then they're gone. They're totally shutting down that entire campus north of Chicago. Current faculty will get a contract for the coming year, but it's unclear how many will move to Canada in the future. How many professors do you think who live in the United States, who have always lived in the United States, how many do you think are actually going to be moving clear across the country to British Columbia, Canada, and live in Canada? I doubt very many. So this may be actually the dissolution of Trinity Seminary, one of the great seminaries, one of the most faithful. Now, I also attended Fuller Seminary out in California, Pasadena, but Fuller is now compromised in many areas of theology. So they're woke, they're into the DEI agenda, they're all kinds of diversity training out there. It's really going the way of liberalism, unfortunately. But Trinity has been a solid evangelical seminary that has held to the faith. The school said current students will be able to complete their program through in-person and online options. Students who are U.S. citizens will still be eligible for federal financial aid, though the school said details about scholarships for students have yet to be determined. So that's going to be very complicated. Along with moving, TEDS will be part of Trinity International University. Wait a minute. Along with moving, TEDS will part ways with Trinity International University, a parent nonprofit which will continue to run online classes and operate a law school in Santa Ana, California. Trinity International President Kevin Compelin said that given the challenges of higher education, the Divinity School needed to ally itself with a larger institution. Well, that's okay. Again, he's not giving the complete picture. The Divinity School needed to ally itself with a larger institution. That makes sense. Okay. Allying yourself with Trinity Western University is fine. But moving the entire seminary or shutting down the whole seminary in the United States north of Chicago, that is a radical step. And they're downplaying that. It's like, oh, we're just affiliating with a larger university educational system. No, you're not just affiliating. You are closing down Trinity in the U.S. I believe a school like TEDS will thrive best and accomplish our mission most effectively as part of a larger theologically missionally aligned evangelical Christian university, the president said. Great, except you're moving out of the country and you're going to lose all your faculty, or most of them, and you're going to lose all of the, or most of your U.S. students. So yeah, it's great to be aligned with a theologically missionally aligned evangelical Christian university, but do you have to go out of nation and out of country to do that? And you have to go 2,000 miles away from your campus to do? No, this is not a good idea. I don't know of how many students. I don't think I would have if, okay, born and raised in Michigan, Trinity Divinity School was 5 or 6 hours away from my home. Yeah, that's doable. But would I have gone from Michigan all clear out to the West Coast and up across the border into Canada, 2,100 and some miles away to go to seminary? I don't think so. No. And live in Canada? No, I don't think so. Among the school's alumni are historian Randall Ballmer, Sojourners founder Jim Wallace, New Testament scholar Scott McKnight. Had him for New Testament a couple times. That was fun. Craig Blomberg, I've talked to him, emailed him before. He teaches at Denver Seminary. Disgraced evangelist Ravi Zacharias, never met him. Christian television host John Ankerberg. Colin Hansen, editor-in-chief, Gospel Coalition. Longtime Professor Don Carson, yes, I've had him. Also was one of the founders of the Gospel Coalition, helping launch the so-called Young Restless Reform movement that led a Calvinist revival among evangelicals. Conser went on to become editor of Christianity Today. I had him for a professor a number of times. Nice, kind gentleman. The school also was home of a number of centers, including Carl F.H. Henry Center for Theological Understanding. I had Carl F.H. Henry as a professor at Trinity when I was there. He is a very important theologian in the evangelical movement. But over the last decade, Trinity has fallen on hard times. In 2015, the Divinity School had 1,182 students, the equivalent of 753 full-timers, making it one of the nation's largest seminaries, yes. But by the fall of 2024, it dropped to 813 students and 403 full-time equivalents. Okay, I was aware that they were going through struggles, but I was under the impression they were going to focus, like a laser beam, on the seminary and get that revived. In 2023, the university shut down its on-campus programs, leaving it with too much property and not enough students. The university ran a $17.3 million deficit in 2023, according to the latest financial disclosures, after shutting down its in-person undergraduate program. That's a kiss of death when you shut down both the online and the in-person at a location. That means you're effectively gone. Trinity's 2024 audit shows a $7.6 million deficit, so they brought that down a little bit. With a similar deficit expected this year, a $19 million long-term loan is also coming due in 2026. So, again, yeah, they're going through financial problems, but hey, how about letting the wider Christian community, the evangelical world, know that you're in desperate shape and send up an SOS and say, hey, we have to raise this $19 million or else we're shutting everything down. The famous seminary, the prestigious seminary that was home for many famous evangelical leaders and professors and theologians, we're having to shut that down if we don't raise this. Can we help? I mean, if there had been an appeal like that, I would have given. And I know thousands of other graduates would have given. And you might have even picked up some very wealthy businessmen who love evangelicalism and are willing to do it. But I didn't hear any of that. So I have to ask the question, why wasn't there more of an urgent appeal instead of this just quietly going into the night? The entire Trinity campus is currently under contract, and the school hopes to close on that sale in October. So they're going to sell the whole property. After the sale is complete, Trinity will lease back part of the campus for the rest of the academic year and use the proceeds to pay off the $19 million loan. About 100 students currently live on campus. I did live on campus for one semester, and their leases will become month-to-month for the upcoming academic year. A university spokesman said many details of TWU's acquisition of TEDS remains to be sorted out, such as what happens to the Henry Center and other centers at the school and how many professors will move to Canada. The two schools are doing due diligence in hopes of finalizing the acquisition by the end of 2025. I actually hope they don't finalize it. I hope some big donors and alumni. I just don't understand why not organize a SOS fundraiser among all the graduates and alumni and people who love evangelicalism and just see what happens. Maybe some really wealthy person will step up and find that $17 million they need. I mean, $17 million, yeah, that's a lot of money, but there are millionaires and even billionaires who can easily give $2, $3, $4, $5 million, even $10 million. I don't quite understand why they have to feel they need to move 2,000 miles away out of the country. How many students are actually going to go way up there now? And there's also another seminary up there too. So Trinity Western will not take on any TEDS financial obligations as part of the merger. The Canadian school's president said the merger will lead to a stronger combined future. It would lead to a stronger combined future if TED was able to stay at its present location. But upping and moving all the way across the country is, I think, a bad idea. So there's a lot of corporate speak and a lot of positive spin on this, but this is just really bad. This is a big, huge loss. Says Mark Laberton, former president of Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California. I graduated there with a doctorate. Said Trinity, like many seminaries, including Fuller, has faced serious headlines in recent years, like nearly all institutions of higher learning. That is true. While the school has outsized influence, it was tied to a smaller denomination, so had fewer resources to draw upon. And while many TEDS graduates were known for their ability to innovate and influence, the school itself was less so. It would be known for faithfulness, but not creativity alongside faithfulness. So yeah, they were faithful to the Word of God and they held to the faith, but they didn't, I don't think, adequately seek out creative ways to solve problems over there. And one of the big problems is they didn't let other people know as much as they should have that they were struggling. Because again, like the college, I got wind of the fact that the college was struggling. And then they said they were going to close their in-person college classes and go fully online. I thought, okay, this is coming off of COVID, so that people know about that. They can struggle online, get that going, and then resume in-person classes, maybe. Well, no. Then the next step they took is they shut down online classes at Deerfield campus. So all of a sudden you have no college there on that property. So they're supposedly shifting their focus to the seminary to save that, and all of a sudden, a year or so later, now they're closing down the seminary. I think they needed to make a bigger hue and cry about the fact that they were going out of existence. Now they're thinking, well, we're just shifting, we're just going down the street a little bit, 2,000 miles, and we're going out of the country into Canada, but that's all. No, you're doing a major step, and you can't minimize that. Ed Stetzer, Dean of Talbot School of Theology at Biola University, said TEDS was often referred to as the Queen of Seminaries, was well respected for its influence in theological education. News of the move and the school's troubles is unsettling, he said. It is. It really is. And that's why I think they needed to make a bigger cry for help. I don't know if it was out of pride or just they didn't have the imagination to say, hey, send up an SOS. Our ship is going down. Help Christians of all types. Help us. It's a jarring moment in theological education and a sign of the times, he said. Seminary education is in trouble. The more closures and mergers are coming unless seminaries and churches find new and innovative ways to partner. David Dockery, a former Trinity International University president, who now leads Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in South Worth, Texas, said that he has hope for the future of TEDS. The school has reinvented itself before, moving from Minneapolis to downtown Chicago and Chicago later to Chicago suburbs. Yeah, but never out of the country. This, in many ways, will be Trinity 4.0. It is now an opportunity for a new and next phase, and I pray God's blessings upon them as they make this important transition. Yeah, well, that's one way to put it, but another way to put it is they're shutting down the seminary, the world-famous Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. And there are big questions as to whether it can really survive way out there lonely on the West Coast. So if you want to go to that seminary, you have to travel hundreds and thousands of miles. Because the only thing to the west of it is the ocean, Pacific Ocean. So unless they're counting on a lot of students coming from Asia, and that might be the idea, Korea, it's probably just as easy to go from Korea and Japan and China and all those to go to the West Coast there than it is to go from New York to the West Coast. So we'll have to see. We need to pray for Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, this once great seminary, the one I attended to get my Master of Divinity. It is now closing down, and it's a sad day in evangelicalism. I just pray that other schools, universities, Christian colleges, and seminaries learn the lesson. If you're in trouble, tell people about it. And if they don't understand, shout about it and cry about it. And don't just go into that dark night quietly and silently. Protest, digging, kicking, and screaming. Don't go out with a whimper like this. Well, we'll see you back next week on another edition of Christ and Culture. God bless.